What's up everyone, hope we're all doing well. It is Monday, the 2nd of August, halfway through the year, well over halfway through the year right now. We are coming through summer, thick and fast. You know, it's been a very interesting year so far. Loving it. You know, lots going on, lots of exciting things going on in the property space right now. I know it's been a crazy place for us all. Not just in property, but the rest of the world, of course. But I wanted to share a scenario which has happened to me before, a scenario which is, a good friend of mine reached out, and something which has, come to light, which happens in the property space when dealing and working with investors. And that is when you have a deal in place, it's having a deal in place and then it falling out of bed at the last minute. This has happened to me. In 2021, actually, we've got a big funder which we've worked with, a chap from overseas. We were offering on sites in London. It was a 100% equity funder who'd actually cover not just the equity, but the full capital stack. So debt as well as equity. Equity is initially the hardest part to raise, and then once you've got equity, you've then got probably the rest of the funding cost, which normally comes in a sort of debt form. And we worked so hard for it, myself, business partner, the rest of the team. We put some detailed appraisals together. We spent weeks on some projects, and all of a sudden the funder fell out of bed, and these things happen, and it was a bit of a frustrating scenario because we had progressed relationships. It was a residential site that we were looking at in London for 25 apartments in Ealing. A good project, and we were sort of quite disheartened really, and it was a scenario which we sort of definitely learned from, and something which I sort of realised very quickly is that we can never ever rely on just one funder. And as I mentioned, this happened to a good friend. We had a project just about to do the deal, sort of the offer agreed in principle, which is always great. There's so many different layers, whether it's doing a 2 up 2 down refurb or whether it's doing a sort of development site as we were doing, it doesn't really matter. There's different parts of the process, and just about to get there, and then boom, sort of funder sort of very quiet, off he goes, and you don't hear from him for whatever reason. Gratefully and thankfully, we're still talking to this particular funder who I mentioned my scenario with, but it just made me realise, and it's when I speak to people similar ages, that you should never ever stop cap in terms of capital raising. You should never stop raising money, because you never know what can happen. That funder may have wanted to do that deal, but for personal reasons, whatever it may be, just couldn't, and that happens. There's nothing wrong with that. These things happen. So, maybe realise that we should always be speaking to funders, and even when you've got funding in place, you should always have those funding conversations going on, because for whatever reason, people with money, they may have personal issues, they may have whatever it may be that they've got to sort of work towards. So, never stop cap raising. It's important. If you're into property, if you're into property development, never stop doing it. Always be networking. Always bringing funding opportunities. Always keep in touch with people. It doesn't mean you have an investor or you meet loads of investors that you're going to start sending them opportunities left, right, and centre. But keep speaking to them. Keep putting stuff to them. Keep meeting them for a coffee. Keep educating them. Because I know for us, for example, we're still looking at residential market, but it's very much focused on sort of social sort of care, specialised supported housing, and that's a new sector for a lot of my funders. I've been to Hong Kong, Middle East, Singapore, China, and that's been very much residential focused. Tier 1 cities, Manchester, Birmingham, and London, where it's been almost quite easy to raise capital. Not easy to raise capital, because that's wrong to say that, but the locations and the sort of the projects itself sell itself. But when you're trying to raise a couple of £1 million, for example, we're looking at a site in Warrington at the moment. That's a 80 bed care home that we're reconfiguring to 70 beds, to comply with current sort of laws, which allows us obviously to make it into 70 beds, so slightly smaller. But it's Warrington. No one really knows Warrington, especially overseas. It's a care home, it's a different market in itself. There's different exit sort of strategies and sort of processes. So it's definitely been that education process. Certainly something I've learned in my journey so far is that you should never ever stop capital raising, because you never know what's going to happen. So make sure you do it. Reach out if you want to obviously have a chat. Subscribe to the channel. If you are struggling to cap raise for your projects, work with a number of funders on a global scale, from the Middle East to Southeast Asia to China. So reach out. Let's have a chat. Click the link in my bio to have a book a call, and let's see if we can get it done. Let's go.